Hundreds of thousands of Americans are spending this night in the dark and cold. Ice cold. Sleet and freezing rain have left the nation's midsection with a dangerous coating that's knocked out power, made travel dangerous, and forced presidential candidates off the trail. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, a shot in the arm for the economy. The Fed cuts interest rates again to try to keep the country from sliding into recession. And 10 candidates, 10 questions. Tonight,
do you think in any way the risks of climate change are overhyped?
Our special series, Primary Questions, continues.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. It is cold out there in the middle of the country. A bad night to be outside. Roads are icy and very dangerous. And for many, it's not much better inside with no heat or lights. All this the result of a storm system that brought snow, sleet, and freezing rain. In some places, the ice is more than an inch thick, causing power lines to snap. So close to 1 million homes and businesses are without electricity. Nancy Cordes is in Des Moines. Nancy, it is a real mess out there, isn't it?
It sure is, Katie, and the evidence is on the tree branches behind me. So icy today, and they were bare just yesterday. Tonight, entire towns in Iowa are without power. Old Glory frozen solid. The ice storm is marching north, leaving behind states of emergency in Nebraska, in Kansas.
If you don't have to be on these roads tonight, do not get on them.
And in Oklahoma, where more than 500,000 homes and businesses lost power, the largest outage in state history.
No food, no way to cook, no hot water.
Food and drinking water are on the way, says FEMA, along with blankets, cots, and generators. The storm is the result of a dangerous combo, a swath of high-altitude Canadian Arctic air mixing with moisture sweeping up from the south, dumping snow and rain that refreezes on the way down.
This has been a nasty start to winter. The ice, and we have snow on the way, and if you have ice on the ground, you have snow on top of it, makes it even more treacherous.
This is the very best smelter.
Dressel's Hardware outside Chicago ran out of salt for the first time since 1979.
I think it was because it came so early, and it was just a sheet of ice on Sunday.
And ice isn't the only problem. In Colorado, snow may have contributed to this collision between a coal train and light rail. No one was hurt. In Oregon, a flood of mud devoured homes, roads, cars, and everything else in its path. And in Iowa, only truly terrible weather could keep most of the major presidential candidates from campaigning.
All the electricity's out in 2 of the towns we were going to.
Governor Huckabee scrubbed 6 events and had to be content with a tour of a baseball museum.
Thank you very much.
Tonight, officials in hardest-hit Oklahoma say it could take a week to 10 days to restore power to everyone who lost it. That's a week without heat for many in 30 to 40-degree temperatures, Katie.
Nancy Cordes in Des Moines. Nancy, thanks so much. With the Iowa caucuses just 23 days away, an ice storm was about the last thing the presidential candidates needed. Here's tonight's CBS News Campaign 08 notebook. The storm forced former President Clinton to cancel rallies in eastern Iowa. Mitt Romney was able to greet shoppers indoors in Des Moines. In spite of the storm, Mike Huckabee was able to announce he's been endorsed by Jim Gilchrist. He founded the Minuteman Project, which patrols the Mexican border to keep out illegal immigrants.
2 former governors.
For Huckabee, it's a way of answering the new Romney attack ad that accuses him of being weak on illegal immigration.
For illegal aliens.
And today's storm slowed down John Edwards' Main Street Express. He had to cancel 3 stops. Edwards is making Iowa his major focus, and for good reason. In our CBS News New York Times poll, he's a distant third nationally behind Clinton and Obama. But in Iowa, the latest Des Moines Register poll shows a tight 3-way race. Edwards hopes a strong showing there will give him the boost he needs for later contests. But as Jeff Greenfield reports, he'll have to do it without major star power.
In her corner, the most dominant Democratic politician of his generation. In his corner, the most dominant media figure of her generation. One more explanation for why the Democratic nomination is so often seen as a two-person race. But at least in Iowa, the numbers tell a different story, a three-way dead heat.
Well, you can't count Edwards out.
Ann Seltzer, who directs the Des Moines Register Iowa poll, points to Edwards' strong second-place showing 4 years ago.
He's been through this before, and he knows what it is to surge at the end.
So what is John Edwards doing? As he did 4 years ago, he's crisscrossing the state of Iowa, arguing that he is the most electable Democrat based on who he is, where he's from, and what he's for. Part of his argument is geographic.
One candidate on our side who's actually won in a red state and grew up in small-town rural America. And I might add, I would say as a practical matter, the last two Democrats that were elected president of the United States, they talk like this.
But Edwards also links that working-class background to his core political argument, a frankly populist attack on corporate wealth and power.
The power in our government, in our country, has become concentrated in the few, and it affects every single thing that's happening.
It's the theme of a new ad linking his campaign to his wife's life-threatening illness.
And Elizabeth and I decided we're not going to quietly go away. Instead, we're going to go out and fight for what it is we believe in.
John Edwards' endgame is simple. Find the Iowa Democrats who want change. Convince them that change requires a fighter and not Obama's intention to be a healer. And hope for a win here that turns a two-way fight into a three-way fight everywhere. Jeff Greenfield, CBS News, Marshalltown, Iowa.
Now to the CBS News Money Watch. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates today by 1/4 point, but that wasn't enough to satisfy Wall Street. The Dow tumbled nearly 300 points, the Nasdaq 66. Investors were looking for more assurance that the Fed would do more to solve the mortgage crisis. And as Anthony Mason reports, that crisis still hasn't hit bottom.
We're looking at some homes that are being foreclosed on or were foreclosed on.
Drive through Tia Simon's neighborhood near the Atlanta airport and you'll see what the Fed is worried about.
It's really bad. This home right here is foreclosed on. You can see the notice in the window.
Simon says 7 of the 20 houses on her street have been in foreclosure. Her subdivision, called Enchanted Forest, isn't so enchanted anymore.
It tells you about the economy, how we're really going downhill.
That's why the Federal Reserve cut its key interest rate again today, the 3rd cut in 3 months, as it tries to steer the economy away from a recession.
I think the problems in the housing market are going to weigh on the broader economy all the way through next spring into the summer. The economy is going to struggle and recession risks will remain high throughout that period.
Could the housing crisis take the entire economy down the drain? Jeff White makes custom sinks for kitchens and bathrooms in Jonesboro, Georgia.
Since the subprime thing came along, things have slowed down. Our business is down about 18%.
White has managed to keep his 46 employees working, but in his business,
we're the only company in Metro Atlanta that's not laid anybody off.
With foreclosures spreading like a virus,
it is. It's contagious.
The Fed could have its hands full.
This is another one that's foreclosed on.
So has it done enough? Wall Street doesn't think so, and they complained loudly today with that near 300-point sell-off. But the betting is the Fed isn't finished and that there are more rate cuts to come. Katie?
To be continued. Anthony Mason, thank you. There is much more CBS News ahead. Is global warming for real? Our series Primary Questions is next. One of the hottest debates in this country concerns global warming. Is the threat overhyped? The public doesn't think so. In a CBS News New York Times poll out tonight, more than half said global warming is a serious problem that's having a serious impact right now. But more Democrats feel that way than Republicans, 71% to 42%. And what about the men and women who want to be president? What do they think? I asked them for our special series, Primary Questions, Character, Leadership, and the Candidates. It's one of 10 questions we hope will give you a better idea of who they are and how they think.
Do you think in any way the risks of climate change are being overhyped?
I don't think it's being overhyped. I think it's being underhyped. I'd make polluters pay, people who below the cap are still putting out carbon dioxide. And that money from making the polluters pay for a permit to do that should be invested in clean, renewable sources of energy, wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuels. We have to clean up our act. As we start cleaning up our act, I think we're in a place to be able to go to China, to India, to the other countries that need to be part of the solution and say, we're developing the technology, we're willing to make this technology available to you, but we're going to have to solve this problem together.
There are a lot of unanswered questions. We don't know to what extent this is a cyclical thing that we may or may not be able to affect very much. The extremists, I think, are the ones who want us to do drastic things to our economy before we have more answers as to how much good we can do and whether or not people in the other parts of the world are going to contribute. But it needs to be a massive federal research and development effort in order to get those answers.
I don't think that it's overhyped. I think that we have time, but we have to start acting now. I would put a heavy emphasis on energy efficiency. We can drastically lower our use of electricity, thereby drastically lowering our use of coal-powered electricity. We need to have higher gas mileage, and I have advocated 40 miles per gallon by 2020, and I believe that's achievable. But we're going to have to help Detroit do it. I don't want to sacrifice jobs. I don't want the American auto industry to go out of business, so I'm willing to give significant help as they make this transition. I want to lead the world in a post-Kyoto agreement that I hope we can get resolved and signed by 2010 that will include China and India.
I don't know. I mean, the honest answer for me scientifically is I don't know. I think that Republicans have made a big mistake by not being more on the forefront of conservation. I consider myself a conservationist. I think we ought to have some cap and trade. It worked with acid rain. I think it could work with CO2 emissions. I think we ought to be out there talking about ways to reduce energy consumption and waste. And we ought to declare that we will be oil-free of energy consumption in this country within a decade. Bold as that is, frankly, it's a matter of national security to get to the point where we're not dependent upon oil coming from countries who, frankly, aren't very friendly to us.
Do you think the risks of climate change are overblown?
No. I think they're serious. We have to take significant steps now to deal with it. So I've put forward a very substantial proposal to get 80% reductions in greenhouse gases by 2050. That is going to require that we change how power plants operate. That's going to require that we increase fuel efficiency standards, that we develop clean and renewable sources like solar and wind and biodiesel. And we're going to have to charge for pollution and create a market for pollution abatement and create green technologies that can, over the long term, generate jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities all throughout the economy.
I think the risks of climate change are real, and that you're seeing climate change. I think human activity is contributing to it. I would develop in this country sources of energy which will allow us to be free of foreign oil, but sources also that don't emit CO2, and that's nuclear power, clean burning coal, all of our renewable resources, and so forth. I also want to see much greater efficiency in our autos, in our homes, in our businesses. That'll get us energy independent. I don't want to have America unilaterally think it's going to somehow stop global warming. They don't call it America warming. They call it global warming. And that means China, which is the biggest CO2 emitter in the world, as well as other nations like Indonesia and Brazil, are going to have to be part of a global effort. So Kyoto was wrong because it left major polluting nations out.
No. I think, if anything, they're underblown. Three things I would do is I would have fuel efficiency in all vehicles 50 miles per gallon. The second, I would say all electricity in this country, 30% by the year 2020 has to come from renewable energy, solar, wind, biomass. And the third would be, I would put a mandate that says that we are going to have a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by the year 2040. Mandates, fines to polluters, to power plants.
There is global warming. Human beings are contributing to it. And I think the best answer to it is energy independence. We've got more coal reserves in the United States than they have oil reserves in Saudi Arabia. If we find a way to deal with it and use it so it doesn't hurt the environment, we're going to find ourselves not contributing to global warming and also being more energy independent. I think we have to take another look at nuclear power. It has to be done very carefully, but we haven't lost a life to nuclear power yet. We have wind, solar, hydroelectric, hybrid vehicles. All these things need to be increased, and an appropriate emphasis on conservation. You can't do it with any one of these things. You can't just do conservation, otherwise you're not going to have growth.
I think Al Gore has done something really quite phenomenal. He has brought into the consciousness the reality of what is going to happen, whether it's 2040, whether it's 2050, 2070, it's going to happen unless we change behavior. I literally would make an executive order saying the United States government would not purchase one single vehicle that didn't get 45 miles to the gallon, and would not, and as a fleet, all the vehicles we buy, and would not build one single building that was not green, use green technology. Out in Iowa, everybody's talking about ethanol, and they're producing all kinds of ethanol. I say, by the way, ethanol, great. And they go, yeah, great for my state. I say, how many ethanol gas stations you got out here? And they go like this. Like, no, they're not. So the second thing is you got to build an infrastructure that the federal government has to be the catalyst for.
I've been to Greenland, I've been to the South Pole, I've been to the Arctic. I know it's real. And I believe that we've got to go back to nuclear power. We've got to do alternate energy. We've got to have a cap and trade proposal, which Joe Lieberman and I have proposed. We need to do green technologies. Let me just put it this way to you. Suppose that I'm wrong and there's no such thing as climate change and we adopt green technologies, then we've just left our kids a better world. Suppose I am right and we do nothing. Then what kind of a planet have we handed to our children? I've been involved in this effort for many years, and we've got to act, and unfortunately, we have not acted either as the federal government or the Congress.
Why has it taken so long, Senator?
Special interests. It's a special interest. It's the utility companies and the petroleum companies and the other special interests. They're the ones that have blocked progress in the Congress of the United States and in the administration. That's a little straight talk.
To hear more of the responses, you can go to cbsnews.com, click on the evening news icon, and you'll find the primary questions videos. Tomorrow, we'll ask the candidates their feelings about some other dangers facing the planet. What country currently frightens you the most, and what would you do about it as president? Al-Qaeda says it was behind a pair of car bombings that rocked Algeria's capital today. One heavily damaged UN offices, the other a government building. The blast sheared the facades off both buildings. At least 26 people were killed. Bombings are on the increase in Algeria, where the government has been battling Islamic militants. In Washington, a Senate committee grilled CIA Director Michael Hayden today about the destruction of videotapes that show the interrogation of terror suspects. And we're learning more about it all from a former CIA operative. David Martin reports.
Un-American. Torture is un-American. Protesters were the least of CIA Director Hayden's problems as he went before a closed Senate hearing to explain the destruction of the CIA's interrogation tapes. It didn't happen on Hayden's watch, so he did not have all the answers.
There are other people in the agency who know about this far better than I, and I've committed them to come on down and answer all the questions that the committee might have.
One tape showed the waterboarding of Abu Zubaydah, the first high-level al-Qaeda operative captured after 9/11.
We were so worried that there was some major attack being prepared that they went straight for the waterboarding.
Former CIA officer John Kiriakou helped capture Zubaydah but refused to take part in waterboarding after seeking the advice of a more senior officer.
He said to me, you know, this is a slippery slope, and one of these days somebody's going to go too far and someone's going to get hurt, and it's going to leak, and there's going to be an investigation, and somebody's going to be prosecuted.
Nevertheless, Kiriakou felt what he now calls torture was justified and worked.
It was that information that he provided after the waterboarding that allowed us to disrupt so many different terrorist operations, all the way to the very end where, you know, there's a truck loaded with explosives that we were able to intercept.
The order to destroy the tapes came from Jose Rodriguez, then head of the clandestine service. CIA lawyers told him there was no legal reason he had to keep them so he immediately ordered them destroyed without clearing it with then CIA Director Porter Goss. Goss found out about it a few days later, but he didn't tell Congress, even though he was once chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.